Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast. This is the football podcast we bring you on the Dynamo Podcast Network each and every single day. Head over to YouTube. You know what to do. Subscribe, bell notification button, share, comment, like, whatever you need to do to support us. Audio versions of the show, of course, are on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, wherever you pick up audio version show. This is your reduced down, slimmed Premier League preview for match week 18. Half the fixtures have been cancelled due to COVID outbreak with the new variant Omicron. Joining me tonight, as always, my partner on these preview shows, Darren. How are we, Darren?
Good evening, Niall. This is the Slimming World version of the Premier League preview.
This is Weight Watchers at its finest. Safe to say we won't be bringing you this week a Beat the Bookie show because what are we going to really bet on, to be honest? You know, we've very little there. There's very little value. We did have a look, but there's no point. But let's get into previewing the Premier League. What fixtures have survived? Touch wood, so far, 24 hours out. First up, Aston Villa versus Burnley.
Yeah, listen, Stevie and his boys are on a good run, aren't they?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say he has them like absolutely firing you, but he's just given them that platform to go out and play again, and that stability which has been built from the back up. You know, I think every man and his dog had the boy Emiliano Martinez in goal last season in fantasy football, and this year nobody had him in because he was conceding left, right, and centre. There's a few boys when we get after Christmas and you get your wild card, might look at bringing them back into the fold, you know. Really doing a good job for Villa there. Stevie's making them nice and solid. And they're picking up a goal or two a game just to keep them ticking and pick up nice little wins and stuff like that, you know. Yeah. Only been beaten by City and Liverpool, hasn't he?
I think so, yeah. So far, yeah. And gave a very good account of himself in both games, in fairness.
Absolutely. 4 wins, 2 defeats, you know. But no, he's getting it done for them, in fairness to him. Burnley, on the other hand, haven't really had the season that they've been looking for. You know, they've been hit with quite a few injuries, haven't they, Burnley?
Yeah.
You know, and when you don't have a massive squad, you know, fielding injuries like that and stuff is very, very difficult. I know they've been hit with a couple of COVID bouts as well and stuff like that. We'll probably talk about that on another show. But it's tough for Burnley to get this rolling, isn't it?
I think in terms of Villa, I mean, they'd be buoyed by the fact that Buendia is back and Danny Ings is back, 2 very big players for them, stuff like that. And it was noticeable when they came on against Liverpool. And they made a big difference to the game, and Villa kind of grew into the game and gave it a good 15, 20 minutes. I think with Burnley, I think I would describe them in the first half of the season of being very unlike Sean Dyche-like.
Un-Burnley-like.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of a softness to them, let's say, where they'd normally be quite physical and quite shrewd in the way that they play their football. I think they tried to become a little bit more expansive, and I don't know whether it suited them.
How many times have we seen this, you know, in the Premier League where a team is doing well and they're getting results and they're ticking over, and then either the manager decides he wants to change the way they play, or the board decides we're going to bring someone in who plays a more expansive style of football. And I mean, if you're picking up results in the Premier League, regardless of how you're doing it, you're doing all right. You know, when like some people want to have their cake and they want to eat it. And you got to be careful with these things. I know it's happened previously where clubs made a change to play a bit more expansive and, you know, to be a bit more attacking and playing the front foot and stuff like that. And all of a sudden now we're back in the Championship, looking up, going, Jesus, we had a spot in there. We were doing all right. And, you know, we tried to push the envelope a little bit too far, and you end up getting downgraded rather than upgraded. You know, it's very easy to happen.
Yeah, and especially at the moment, and we're going to do a show on the COVID effect on the Premier League at the moment with the postponement of games and fixtures building up. And we'll talk about all that show that'll be dropping tomorrow. But I think in this situation here, it's an opportunity for teams that are playing to kind of steal a bit of a march and put a gap between themselves and the bottom two or the bottom three, if you like. I think Burnley definitely have enough to stay up, but never say never.
Of course, yeah.
But what you're thinking on this one then? What do you?
Yeah, I think this is Villa. To be honest with you, I think this is 2-0 Villa. This is no, I'll go 2-1 actually. I think this is 2-1 Villa. I think it'll be tough for them. It'll be physical. I think. But I think they've tightened it up an awful lot at the back, and I think they've goals in them. And as you said, the boy Buendia, when he came on against Liverpool, changed the game completely and gave them a foothold. We knew what type of a player he was. We've spoken about him a few times this season.
Yeah,
he's got beautiful touches of the ball. He travels really well with the ball at his feet. Technically, he's fantastic. I think at Villa, guys are still getting to know how he plays, because I think he's putting balls into areas and he's thinking there should be people there, and they're kind of looking around going, not this time, pal, But I think that's something that will come along. I think Stevie will see that and he'll go, do you know what? This kid's not actually doing that wrong. It's maybe the guys in front of him need to make a better run or need to time stuff better and stuff like that. So I think Villa will do this tomorrow. I think they'll do it 2-1 to Villa.
Yeah, I'm thinking 3-1, because I think they have been scoring a few goals. I think Watkins is a huge threat, and if he can get on the same wavelength as Buendia, as you said there, I think there's a lot more goals in it for him. And I think having Danny Ings back and getting that time under his belt and more matches and stuff like that, I think that will only benefit him as well, because I know he's kind of a fitness and a confidence kind of player and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So it takes him a bit of time to come back as well. But he's had minutes under his belt now, and I expect him to put in a shift. And I'm going to go Villa 3-1.
Okay.
Rounding out the Saturday fixtures at 5:30, which is kind of weird. I mean, they should have maybe done a 12 o'clock game with Villa and Burnley, shouldn't they? And then I suppose it's TV; it's all locked in anyway.
It's TV, and it's also people might have transport and stuff booked for a game at a time.
Yeah,
so
I suppose
short notice as well.
Yeah.
I know there's probably not too many Burnley fans heading over from Dublin, but there might be one or two that don't want to be upsetting.
Well, I know a few Aston Villa fans.
I know a couple of Aston Villa fans. Yeah, I do, absolutely, yeah. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
So the 5:30 game, Leeds United versus Arsenal. Very interesting fixture, to say the least.
Very. I suppose Arsenal have again, that they're very workmanlike at the minute, Arsenal, aren't they? They seem to be grinding out results against the lesser teams. And then they're being kind of put to the sword a little bit by some of the more established teams and some of the stronger teams in the league and stuff like that,
Although the performance against West Ham was impressive, even though I know West Ham went down to 10 men. But I mean, even prior to that, they were looking decent, weren't they?
Yeah, it wasn't bad in fairness to them, But I think that's the kind of result they have been picking up. Like, I know we're talking about West Ham obviously being in the mix for a Champions League spot and stuff like that, but I don't see West Ham up there with the Cities and the Uniteds and the Chelseas and the Liverpools of the league either. I think it would be a surprise if they got the result, and I just think even those four are a bit further ahead than the rest. I think that's the way it'll finish. Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, or City and United in the top four, and I think they're the games Arsenal are going to struggle in. I think they'll beat a lot of the lower teams, certainly at home. And I think they'll grind out stuff, 1-0s, 2-1s away from home and stuff like that. But I think they're going to lose an awful lot of points to the bigger teams, which in theory was always how Arsenal didn't play. They would have beaten the bigger teams and the better teams. And it was the opposite way, right? And this is now changed. But I mean, that's not a bad thing either, because if you can go by, beating the teams you should be beating, that gives you a great foundation then to go out and say, well, if we can start nicking results in these bigger games, this is going to put us in a really, really good position, going forward. I still think they're a bit light, though, I have to be honest.
Right. What have you made? I mean, before we get into Leeds, who suffered a vicious thumping the other night against Man City, and we'll talk about that. What have you made about the whole Aubameyang thing? They seem to be playing with a bit of freedom with him not around, don't they?
Yeah. They do, I suppose we spoke about this on the mashup, I think, didn't we? About Aubameyang and stuff like that. And I think you timed that hot topic quite well, if I'm honest. If we see what's happened throughout the week, and obviously we spoke about the captaincy and stuff like that, and then he's had the captaincy taken off. I'm sure people are sitting home going, Jesus, these two know what they're talking about here,
Yeah, there's a little crystal ball there somewhere.
They gave us all this information on Monday night, and this didn't happen until Wednesday. Like, who were they talking?
Yeah, I was talking to Stan Kroenke on the Tuesday or on the Sunday night, yeah. But what have you made about the dynamic of it? I mean, we're hearing today as well that he showed up for training this morning an hour and a half early, and he was kind of told, "Fuck off."
Yeah, and rightly so, like,
Yeah. So this guy, he's either taking the piss one way or he's taking the piss the other way, isn't he? But he is trying to undermine Arteta. There's no doubt about this at this
Absolutely. And I think his lack of respect for Arsenal Football Club at the minute is, it's astonishing, really. Arsenal are a big club with a lot of history, a lot of water under the bridge at Arsenal there is. And they've been a big, big club. You look at what Wenger built there for Arsenal. I mean, all those consecutive Champions League appearances and stuff like that.
Brilliant teams.
They were sitting at the top table of European football, playing the Barcelona, playing the Bayern Munich, and they were in a fight. We've seen Arsenal on those Champions League nights turn over big teams. They were so good, and to see them obviously now, and this is a transitional period and stuff like that for them, obviously under Mikel Arteta. But to see the way Aubameyang and the lack of, respect that he's treating the club and his teammates and the fans, the fans that pay his wages by showing up on a Saturday afternoon and spending their hard-earned cash and money on jerseys with his name on the back of it, or a program, or a hot dog and a Coke, because all of that money goes towards, the wages for these guys who in turn then need to remember, where their bread is buttered, and not just think about it. This is all about me. And there's definitely a narcissism to it about Aubameyang, isn't it? It seems to be, if it's not all about me, I don't really care, and I don't think that's the right attitude. We spoke about it, and I don't think it's the right attitude to have around the club. I think it's a horrible attitude to have when you think of the really good up-and-coming youngsters that they've got, in the squad there with the Bukayo Sakas and the Emil Smith-Rowe and the Odegaard and the Nketiah and there's so many good young footballers there, isn't there? The Gabriel Martinelli,
Tomiyasu. Yeah, they've a great pool of players.
Armé Sammy Lokonga. You've got Kieran Tierney, all of those lads, Ramsdale, and they're looking at this guy who should be out there and leading by example. Like, this lad's played at big football clubs.
Yeah.
He's played for AC Milan. He played for Borussia Dortmund. Like, they're two of the big powerhouses in European football.
Is there any leniency towards the fact that, I mean, we know Aubameyang has been an 18-yard box player, and Arsenal kind of aren't really playing that kind of style, if you like. Is there a case for his frustration in terms of the style doesn't suit the player anymore, and he's being asked to work a lot more than what he would be used to? And at his age, potentially, it's just not his game.
No.
Okay.
Like, again, when he gets his pay packet at the end of the month and it has all those big zeros after, and if he hasn't put in a couple of performances, does he turn around and say, lads, take 2 or 3 of them zeros back there, will you? This doesn't really suit me to have all this money.
No, but you know what I mean? Even apart from the money, where I'm coming from is, look, we know he can score goals. We know he's a very good player. That is without question. Okay? But where I'm coming from is, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, which obviously, I'm thinking, if you look at Ronaldo at your own club at United, there's a way of playing to maximise his return on investment.
Of course.
And as a really, really top coach, sometimes you have to recognise that you have to put guys in there that have to do the work, and there's guys in there that put the polish on top of that work to seal the victories. Now,
Absolutely.
is it a case that his principles of the game and where he thinks he's most potent for Arsenal, which he has shown in the past, does that not now fit the Arteta system? Or is it just this is Arteta realising, look, this guy is just trouble from start to finish now, and I'm done with him?
I mean, Arsenal still have to score goals. So that need for somebody to put the shine on a performance or the gloss on it, that's still there. They still need that. And they are creating chances. You know, we've seen him fluff his lines an awful lot in recent weeks, you know. And to give him an out and say, oh, you know, maybe they're not playing to his strengths, and maybe, and I of course understand, you know, you're coming at this and to try and cover all the bases and play devil's advocate and stuff like that. But there's a point where you have to go, you know, the onus has to be on him as well. And it can't just be that he's the victim in all of this and that maybe we're not playing to his brand of football or his style of football. So change. Your team needs you. If you're world class, if you're as good as you say you are, and if you're getting paid all that money, change. Do what the manager wants you to do. You know, if he wants you, you know, putting in challenges at the halfway line, and if he thinks that's best for the team, then do it. You know? But we know that's not Aubameyang. We know this is all about, you know, I want to do things a certain way and I want to do things my way. And if it's not my way, it'll be the highway. You know, and he'll take his ball and he'll run.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, here's the thing. You can only do that for so long before even teams decide, you know what, not into it. Yeah. You know, this is too much.
It's a kind of a Mario Balotelli effect, isn't it? Like the baggage doesn't warrant the return on the investment.
Well, here's the thing. If he was in the form he'd been in previously, maybe. But I mean, at the minute, he literally wouldn't hit a barn door with a banjo.
Well, see, there's never trouble at a club that's scoring goals and winning games, regardless of what's going on underneath and what's bubbling, you know. But yeah, I thought I'd ask you, because I know I don't necessarily always want to write guys off, because you know you can write guys off, you can move them on, and then they're amazing.
Well, here's the thing. How many weeks have I come out and fought Fred's corner? Right?
Yeah.
When so many United fans wrote the kid off, yeah, and said, he's dirt, he's this, he's that, he's a brand new hat. All of a sudden, you know, 3-4 games he's had now, and lads are going, this guy's all right. It's great now we're playing him in the right position, blah, blah, blah. So personally speaking, I wouldn't be someone who would throw the towel in on players too soon. I would always give them the benefit of the doubt. And I would actually always say, as you brought up, that if something's not working, it's usually because of a reason. Reason being, maybe they're being playing out of position. Maybe, you know, maybe there's a difference there with the manager. Maybe the team is struggling. Maybe he's got something going on off the pitch. There's always reasons why, you know, the player that you bring into your club isn't the player that you wanted to bring into your club. You know what I mean? But with guys like Aubameyang, like, I believe as soon as he got that deal, and as soon as he signed on that line, he just hung them on the peg and was like, done now, that's that. You know, I don't think there's any personal pride there for the guy. He doesn't look like a guy who, you know, if I'm going into the trenches tomorrow, I'll bring Niall Hogan with me. Will I look over at your man and go, he can come too? I'd probably go, actually, pal, you head over to the other side because I've a much better chance of beating him with a prick like you on them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
they definitely look more at it, don't they, without him? Lacazette looks a different player as well. Like
he's look at the talent and the ability the guy has. Like at times he's absolutely mesmerized in that Premier League. But at the minute, like he would play second or third fiddle to Lacazette, who's probably past it, Eddie Nketiah, who hasn't quite reached it yet, and the kid Florian Balogun, who, again, another kid who won't sign a deal at Arsenal because he's not getting the game time he feels like he should be getting. You know,
I think on current form at the moment, if you look at the top 4 clubs, if you put United in there with Chelsea, Liverpool, and Man City, he'd just about barely make the benches, wouldn't he? If even on current form.
Jesus, I think that's a stretch. I'd have Divock in ahead of him all day long.
Yeah, plus I suppose you're looking at 3 or 4 managers there that wouldn't have a tolerance level for a lack of work rate.
There's well, listen, I obviously we heard word from Thomas Tuchel this week, that he's gonna have a chat to him because he's a good buddy of his from the Borussia Dortmund days, whatever. And it did sound like maybe he was.
Chelsea fans will be pulling their hair out.
Maybe, but here's the thing. Could they really be pulling their hair out on the basis that, look at Werner and Lukaku at the minute? Like, do they go in and say, does Tuchel say to the Chelsea board, listen, let's do a straight swap, him and Werner? Let's put Werner out there and say, listen, it hasn't worked. You go to Arsenal, hopefully things change for you. And we'll take Aubameyang, who is a proven goal scorer and who I know will work well under me because he's worked well under me in the past. And, but I don't think you could say no.
I think if Werner's moving out of Chelsea, it's back to Germany, isn't it? Has to be, doesn't it? He just doesn't look like a boy who has settled. Sure, he doesn't. No,
he doesn't look like a guy who has settled. But, I tell you the thing about Werner is, it's not for lack of work rate or effort.
Yeah.
It might be lack of quality, but it's definitely not lack of effort. Like, when he's out there, the kid's working.
The boy's trying. He is definitely trying. Yeah, he's not switched off. Like, yeah.
No. He's putting it out there. Things aren't happening from him. He almost looks like he's trying too hard at times.
Yeah.
But he's certainly not Jack the Towel in. He's certainly not looking around the place going, well, I'll let someone else do it. I'm busy today. That's not how he looks. And I think, again, with Werner, you've probably got an air of he might turn around and say, I've unfinished business in this league, because at the minute, everybody says I'm not, what it says on the tin, but I kind of fancy I am. And a young Arsenal side, flanked by a Martinelli and a Saka with a Smith Rowe and an Odegaard in behind. That could be very, very appealing.
Could be the mix that makes it work, couldn't it?
Do you know? I mean, there's an awful lot of pace and there's an awful lot of attack and threat with the names we've mentioned there,
Yeah.
Like, he would love that, I would imagine. Love it.
Be interesting to see anyway. Getting back to Leeds, absolutely smashed up by Man City. Massive job for Marcelo Bielsa to pick these guys up off the floor. This was the Rocky Apollo Creed moment, throw the towel in, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, it was very, very poor, wasn't it? Now listen, here's the only thing we will say. On their day, City can pretty much do that to anybody. Like, they really, really can. I get it's 7, and I completely understand that 7's, it's embarrassing for the club, it's embarrassing for the players, for the fans, the manager. But I mean, at times, City can be that good.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about it is, like, when they went 3-0 down, there wasn't a huge, how would you put it? There wasn't a huge drive to try and change things maybe a bit. It was more of the same. And I've been listening to a number of Leeds fans over the last 2 days now saying he's done. Like, so his past go on the Monopoly board has kind of ran out a little bit, hasn't it? A bit. Now, there's no doubt he is a fantastic coach. But the problem at the moment is when you're looking at that and you're 3-0 down, and I know you're saying it's Man City, league champions, fantastic squad, brilliant team, play amazing football. They also have Pep Guardiola there, who wants to score 10 goals against every team, no matter who it is, and keeps on encouraging them at 4-5-0. Go forward, more, which is fantastic to see. But I just think, is the onus not on a coach when you're 3, maybe 4-0 down? Damage limitation here. Let's shore it up. Let's change a few things. Let's do something, rather than, like, if it's more of the same, then it's only going to be more of the same, isn't it?
Absolutely. But I do get the feeling with Bielsa that, as much as we would call him, a tactical genius at times and a footballing genius and stuff like that,
stubborn.
He can be extremely inept at times because of unwillingness to change and just say, you know, all right, we're 3-0 down. If I push here, we're going to get picked off. Could end up 5, could end up 6. He's probably not thinking 7, really. But that all happens from him trying to nick 1 to get back in the game. When, like you said, a 3-0, maybe you need to say, do you know what? We need to play another day. And we need to make sure our confidence isn't absolutely on the floor when we do go to play our next game. And you save a little bit, you know?
Especially with so many teams struggling in the Premier League down at that bottom section as well. It could very well come down to goal difference in this. You know what I mean? And I know it's early in the season to be thinking that way. But you got to shore it up a bit, don't you?
They don't have the players to shore it up. Like their squad is so poor. And we've spoken about this on a number of occasions. The Leeds squad is very, very light. Like, they went out and spent that money on Dan James when they would have been better off spending it on another holding midfielder for when Phillips wasn't fit and another centre-back, you know? Now, yeah, of course, you don't see the amount of injuries coming down the pipe that they have, but like, they're still so light through that spine of the team, you know? James, I just don't think was the type of signing that was right for Leeds. And again, that's not to say he's not putting a work rate in, and you know, obviously he's picked up a goal or so, and you know, he's done okay for them. But I mean, I don't think he's a net. I think they'd have been better off looking for a striker for that money. Somebody that could get them goal on goal on goal, because you know, they don't have that. Even when Bamford's fit, they don't have that. Bamford's record is decent, but Bamford has a whiff of the Andy Coles off him, you know. He needs 5 or 6 chances before he puts one away.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with him. And that spine of the Leeds side, like you said, is very soft. And I think that's where they're going to come into trouble throughout the season, is not having to have the backup coming from the bench and from the stands and that, you know.
Yeah. What you're thinking on this one?
3-0 Arsenal.
That's big. 10 goals and 2 fixtures. Boom. That's maybe our first nail in the Bielsa coffin, is it?
I actually think the only thing saving them at the minute is COVID. That, you know, they're looking around at everything else that's going on. Because I think if everything was ticking along nicely in the world outside of Leeds, I think someone at this stage would have gone, we need to get rid of this guy.
I was thinking of you the other night. I was coming home in the car and I was listening to Leeds fans on talk.
Does that happen often, Pat?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was listening to Leeds fans on Talk Sport.
Yes.
And it was a very interesting dynamic, because a Leeds fan came on and he was asked, well, if Bielsa went, who would you want to come in? And one of them came on and mentioned your suggestion from earlier in the season, Frank Lampard.
Yeah, I think it'd be made for Frank, to be honest with you. I think it'd be absolutely made for Frank, because I think there's, you know, there is players you could get something out of. I think you need to make a few changes, but I think the biggest thing you need to change is the style and the tactics that they're going out there to employ, you know. I think you could see, if Frank, I think here's another little shout. If Frank does go in there, we know we're going to probably see a couple of Chelsea lads head that way on loan or something like that. But here's me big shout, and this is for the Ireland fans. He'll look to bring Jason Knight into Leeds. 110%.
Interesting shout.
The boy that was at Derby with him.
That'd be brilliant for the Ireland setup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Only improve that boy at a higher level, playing with better players.
You know what? He's a fabulous footballer. And I think Lampard would love somebody like that. Work rate, work ethic, has a bit about him, puts himself about, you know, has a bit of quality and stuff like that. I think he'd do very well at Leeds. I think he'd do very, very well at Leeds, I have to say.
Well, I think
with the likes of a Rafinha and a Bamford, and you know, and a James maybe, or a Harrison.
Well, I think this is a must-win for Leeds. And because I'm thinking that way, I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal.
I was like, Leeds, really? Whoa, hold
No,
on.
I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal, but I think it'll be tighter than you think. That's what I think. I think it will be. I think, God, he has to figure out something, doesn't he? Like, look, attacking football only looks beautiful when you score, doesn't it?
It does, and like they don't really have anyone to score the goals. That's the big problem.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's kind of like cutting a bread roll with a fork or with a spoon, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not going to work. Like it's blunt. You have a blunt instrument in your hand there. Like, you know, it's very tough.
Yeah. Let's go through then Sunday, the final 3 fixtures of the weekend's Premier League action.
You get excited about.
We start at 2:00, Newcastle versus Man City.
This could be another tough day at the office for Newcastle.
This is your -3, isn't it? In the handicap.
I'd imagine so, yeah. I would, absolutely. I think they did well to get out of Anfield with 3-1, didn't they?
I think they did. I listened to Eddie Howe after the game, and he said how the Jota goal, and I spoke about it on the match reaction, that the Jota goal maybe shouldn't have counted because Isaac Hayden was down on the ground nursing a head injury that the ref didn't pick up on, so the game continued to score. Yeah, it was. They were both down actually, and but I was thinking afterwards, and he was saying that this had a huge bearing on the game. Now, even if that goal didn't go in, we probably would have won 2-1 or more potentially, but who knows? Yeah. But it was interesting how he said it had a bearing on the game, and then when I looked at the stats of the game, I think Liverpool had 24 shots and Newcastle had 4. And I'm thinking, on another day, we'll bang 5 of them in.
Yeah, you're thinking, Eddie, it really didn't have that big of a bearing on the game, did it? You know?
Yeah. And then I just thought he was clutching at straws. And then I listened to today. I think today he was doing his press conference. And Mark Goldbridge off the United Stand made the comment that this guy wants games postponed because he wants to get to January to buy players to try and survive and have plenty of fixtures in the bag to try and do it, which could be an interesting dynamic, really, you know?
Well, listen, it's not a bad idea, is it? No. Let's try and push this out if we can a little bit, because if we can push it out a little bit, we might just get some reinforcements in the door, you know? Yeah. I see them today being linked with the boy Dusan Vlahovic at Fiorentina. And they are they're so short of goals. It's a bit scary. And he would be a great acquisition for them. Yeah. If he wants to play in the Championship, that is. If he wants to play in a decent standard league, he might hang on till the summer. But I don't think Fiorentina will be trying to cash their chips in just yet, because I think they know if this gets to the summer, and a lot of the pretenders that are in for Haaland, Haaland can only go to one place eventually. He can only end up in wearing one jersey and holding one jersey up going, you know, it's great to be here. I've been an XYZ fan all my life and blah, blah.
My dad now can comfortably retire.
Yeah, and when Haaland goes wherever he's going to go, then you're really going to see guys, our team getting involved.
Then you're into the Vlahovic and Lautaro Martinez.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's when Vlahovic's stock will really rise, when Haaland's been taken off the shelf.
Yeah, although he's having a heck of a year, isn't he? Did you see? I think I read there the other day his goal scoring record.
That's right. Calendar year
to Ronaldo or something like that for the calendar year or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. Which is, and for a guy that's playing on a team that aren't one of the big success stories in Serie A, that's phenomenal.
Yeah,
I mean, what kind of damage would he be doing at Juventus? Do you know, like it's
or a top team in the Premier League.
Well, I mean, we all know the top teams in the Premier League are much better sides than the Italian teams anyway, you know. Yeah. That's been proven recently enough anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. What are you going for in this one?
What am I going for in this one? 5-0 City.
Yeah, I'm thinking upwards of 4 anyway, and the sky is the limit depending on how quickly they get off the mark.
I saw quite a few people use their triple captain in fantasy football on Salah the other night when they played Newcastle. Say there could be another few boys might decide to use it with City.
Yeah.
On Sunday, you know.
The problem for City, though, is who do you put it on? Because they're all scoring.
I don't have a City player in my squad for that reason, because you don't know week to week who's going to play.
Yeah. Or who's going to score, because they're all chipping in on the goals.
Unless you're playing Cancelo, who pretty much at the minute is a given every game, because he's so good you can't leave the kid out.
Yeah. Good news today on Pep Guardiola, though. It wasn't a negative test, so he's good to go for the game. As it stands, he's good to go for the game, Pep. So,
shucks.
There we go. So let's move on then. The other 2:00, Wolves versus Chelsea. Chelsea with a lot of problems at the moment between injuries and between COVID, coming off a series of poor results, going up against a tough side in Wolves, who are battle hardened at the moment by the looks of things. They'll have Jimenez back though, won't they?
They'll have Jimenez back because he only got the 1 game ban because it was 2 yellows.
Yeah.
And he likes playing Chelsea. He puts it about against Chelsea. He gets nice and physical, you know. This is another potential banana skin for Chelsea. You know, especially with them not maybe, you know, playing as confidently as they had been. They were on a roll earlier on the season, weren't they? And they were flying, and you were kind of thinking, geez, these guys are big in the game here, but things have changed recently at Chelsea, and the confidence has gone a little bit.
How do you feel about some fans throwing in the towel at the moment? It's a bit early, isn't it? Or is
Plastic fans, like.
Yeah, it's a bit early to be throwing in the towel.
You're a plastic fan if you're throwing in the towel on your team after 14 games, no, 15 games.
Yeah.
You know, like you've really got to be able to stick with your team for 38 league games in the season before you start jumping on their back.
But this would be a vital one, though. I mean, if City were to win against Newcastle, and we think they are going to win, Chelsea could ill afford to drop more points, could they?
Well, listen, I think any of those 3 teams can't afford to really drop points. They want to be in the shake-up with the other 2. But unfortunately, I think the likelihood is that Chelsea are probably in the position at the minute where they're more likely to drop points than the other 2.
Yeah. What you thinking on this one?
I think Chelsea will do it, but I think it'll be very, very close. I'm gonna say 2-1 Chelsea.
2-1 Chelsea. I'm gonna go for a 2-2 draw.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I think there will be goals in it. But I think Wolves are very stubborn at the moment. He has them playing in a way it's tough, isn't it? The way they play. And I think with Chelsea at the moment, I think the other night we saying, like, you know, if you're looking to Ross Barkley to come off the bench to win you a game, you're in trouble, aren't you? Now, I don't know the status of players at the moment and if there's anyone coming back. I know, was Kante on the bench the other night, but he wasn't used or something like that, or was he? I'm not too sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I think if they can get a couple of players back, I'd have a different light on it. But I think if we're going in with what we know now, I think it could be a tough day. I think
he could start with Barkley, and that's really scary.
Yeah, really, really scary
for Chelsea, who 3 weeks ago saw themselves as big title challengers, and obviously the outbreak and the injuries and stuff like that that's gone on at Chelsea, and you know, for them to be now looking at Ross Barkley going, here's the saviour.
Yeah, it was interesting as well, wasn't it? It was interesting to hear a number of Chelsea fans. I was listening to them last night as well, talking about they need to sign a few more players, that they don't think they have a squad to sustain a title challenge, which I thought was very strange considering the squad that they had now when you go through it man for man and stuff like that. But then I suppose you look at the upheaval of Christensen and Rudiger in terms of their contract situation at the moment, of that, which has to be causing a little bit of concern. And then you look at when Kante is out of the team and Kovacic, they don't seem to be quite that steely midfield. And that then coupled with, you know, Pulisic not delivering the form as you would expect, and Ziyech at times cropping up with some nice stuff, but very inconsistent.
Yeah.
And obviously Werner with his struggles, Lukaku's been out of the team and in the team. What you thinking on that comment in terms of more incomings in January potentially?
I don't know if you can just keep throwing players at it, can you?
Well, that's what they do, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, I suppose it is what they do, but I mean, you've got to solve the equations you have at the minute. Like, until Christensen and Rudiger have sorted something, for good or for bad, by the way, because I'm not saying they have to stay or they have to go, but you need to sort something.
Just need a decision.
And get pulling in the right direction. I feel the same about Pogba at United,
Yeah.
But you need things to be going in the right direction. And I think it can be very unstable or destabilizing for the rest of the players, when it's all about these two guys and their decision to stay or go and whatever. But I think they're big players at Chelsea as well. So, for
it's
Chelsea
just, it's mad when you see the drop off, though, isn't it? When you see they bring on Barkley, drop off, Saul Niguez the other night. Hopefully
we spoke about that in our own WhatsApp group, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I think at this stage they're probably thanking their lucky stars they didn't commit to signing him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if that was written in, you'd be pulling your hair out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on then. The 4:30 Super Sunday, Tottenham versus Liverpool. Still unsure whether this will go ahead, but on the face of it, it looks like it's going to go ahead.
I think
Tottenham look like they're going to be quite. Tottenham are looking like they're quite diminished in terms of players. They've been badly hit with COVID, and you'll see the last 3 games, I think it is, have been postponed. A European tie and two league games. So I don't know, are many of those players on the fringe are coming back out of their isolation or whatever it is. What you're thinking on this one? Obviously, Liverpool, I presume Fabinho and Van Dijk won't be available because they tested positive, but it was only 3 days ago or whatever it is.
Yeah, so they're not out of isolation yet at this stage, are they?
I wouldn't have thought so.
No, listen, this is Liverpool all day long for me. I just think they're going to have way too much in the tank for Spurs. That kind of brand of football and that speed and tempo that they bring to the game will frighten the daylights out of Spurs and Conte. Because I don't think they're that kind of a team. I think they're much more of a team to sit back and try and soak up a little bit of pressure, but I don't think you can soak up pressure with the way Liverpool play the game. I think you're playing a very, very dangerous game there,
Yeah, I was listening to Conte.
We saw in the United game when we tried to play football out from the back and they picked us off one at a time and then closed in on goal, and it was like, this is like the Alamo at this stage,
Yeah, I was listening to Conte today. He was talking about how I wasn't sure whether he was being sincere to Jurgen Klopp or whether he was playing mind games, but he had suggested that Liverpool is kind of the blueprint for how things should be done.
I'd say there's got to be a lot of respect there for Klopp and how he's done things at Liverpool. I know, from a United point of view, United fans might struggle to agree externally and to their mates and to their pals and whatever, but I think internally, you can't argue with what he's done at Liverpool, can you?
No.
He's
with Conte now, you just never know. Sure, you don't. It's just there's that mystique about him, really, isn't there?
Yeah, he's not. I'm not. I don't like seeing managers going out there trying to be
too cagey.
Yeah, let's just let everyone put their cards on the table now. Let's see what the cards are. And let's see who's best at using the cards. That's where the real, that's where your real salt is earned, don't just say, oh, well, I'm going to go out and do it. He's very coy at times, Conte, isn't he? He tries to be a bit cute for himself, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of that.
What's your prediction for this one?
3-1 Liverpool.
3-1. I'm thinking 3-0. I think it'll be a clean sheet.
Okay. That'll be a tough clean sheet now with Son and Mora and Kane and.
If Son and Mora and Kane are there.
Well, we're going at it as if they are, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming, but I mean, who knows? I did hear today that the boy Reguilon is back anyway, so and he's a decent player for them anyway.
He is. He's just a shocking defender, isn't he?
Yeah, but going forward, he gives them something really important.
He does give them a little bit going forward, but defensively, he's shocking.
Yeah,
he's absolutely shocking. Like the boys are coming down that left side, and he's standing in a queue with the taxis, you know, trying to mooch his mates board, and you're like, there's this bloke? Like, you get out of here, will you? You know, you're supposed to be playing left back here, kid. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. I never got your comment last night either on what you thought of Trent Alexander-Arnold's last-ditch tackle on Fraser to stop them equalising. A man you would have regarded as not having any defensive qualities, but
well, don't forget now, you know, you're putting in last-ditch tackles like that. He's been caught out of position earlier on in the move. You know,
if it works for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, it works for Trent.
Well, this is the point. We not absolutely drilled Aaron Wan-Bissaka over this? Drilled him.
Only in recent times. We've admired him for far too long.
It's a great goal he scores.
Mm.
You know, but again, I just want to defensively see a little bit more from him. See, I don't actually believe he can show as much more defensively because of the formation and the tactics and the system he plays in.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, you know, you would need a change in the guard at Liverpool for somebody to go, okay, listen, I think you're amazing, but I'd like to see you do a little more work on this side of the ball and this side of the ball. I don't think Klopp's ever going to do that to him.
That's not going to happen anytime soon.
No, absolutely not.
Well, listen, a pleasure having you on. Again,
as always,
this has been our Premier League preview, match week 18. Fingers crossed that it's being held together, that the Premier League, they're not going to put it on ice or a circuit breaker.
I brought some chewing gum here that if we need to stick it together, we should be all right, pal, yeah?
We should be okay, yeah, absolutely. Is that one of those booster chewing gums, is it?
It's little airwaves.
Perfect. Well, until next time, Dynamo Podcast Network on YouTube, Spotify for audio version show. If you'd like to contact the show, we're on Twitter at @the_upper_tier. Drop your comments down there as well. Let us know your predictions. Do you agree? Get on board this time, folks. It's only 5 fixtures. We're not going to take too much time out of your day. Let's see if you agree with us. Let's see if we get it right. Darren's keeping the scoreboard hot and fresh anyway. I am miles behind. I am basically the Norwich of this at the moment, I'd say. I'm definitely in the mud. But until next time, a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, brother.